就把这种呢叫做些大概接受这边做能些罗拉这些上街这块儿修，甚至他们这地方当地别就当地把这些事情他们这都没了，都没就当这块这些事情他们这都没别。地方当没着吧，就是些甚至他们这年人小当年当这边当牛了那会儿就是这刚个地区这块就搞完没吧，进没吧。切巴没吧，当没吧，红啊没吧，这没吧，到底什么东西没？周围你这些地方，周边上地嘛，那些当把的那讲这。马上完全没写了，把罗钱马进门口那给我你所做上的一句嘛，这种这边用了讲这了地下当个的巴拉上个的，不得也说吧，地下当个的巴拉上个的不得也说吧，爸爸过去从这个一点没东西写了，都把这些新闻这些让这新闻这些。个这东家这些写报道，没得那北京那这报道，东北这些不是做的呢，这些的讲等的小。拉玛当公布集团将北洋了，将在老康个老多这你真的那么大了这边今年东个这件事情你也都把那个的。看到这边早上没得没到东个个这边，着做工了，北京在这也闹出一样的这种，中到七多年，你能理解这种这些，没得没些都没有。今年现在这真的话，都能到现社区大上用电脑都节省都不够，知道是当今现在到了没人将北洋了，对，我马上把那电话把那电话把那。我马上把那电话把那电话把那电话。 Omara badana Omara badana de zene juni jena wazir je daru de mara zene kadan de juju da bai Loro babe nama de zoro to zam gome jira be de zoro je de melo de so zoro joro de mo de zoro ni de jira de je lo tange du je je de je hiện giờ mà tôi đưa cho con cháu vào sẽ đi làm bao nhiêu việc rồi giờ cái tôi để là cho nó chuẩn bị tôi sẽ ngõ lại như thế nào lúc không gian chỉ để cho nó để đi cái hàng tôi bây giờ bao nhiêu trận nó phải số anh thế nào mà lại cái đàn đó chính cái chúng ta đã mấy cái đó cũng chỉ trận nó chỉ tao thậm chí cái đó có chuyện đó sẽ chỉ tạm chí đó là sáng đi công việc bao nhiêu chuyện này thao vào chả để thao vào chả bây giờ để tạm bây giờ nhẹ nhàng bây con này cũng không có sự rồi
For the sake of all sentient beings and with the wish to attain the precious state of Buddhahood, we can begin by having this good motivation to listen to the teaching.
đó chụp cái bác sĩ này cái chuyện là 그런 배 상보 소 샘팅의 그런 배 약고 키야다 안 다가나 이소소제 내가 가르쳐 거나 샘 많이 와치야다 아니 제스 뭐라면 약고 잡샤이나 아니 개가 될 때는 샘체 망보를 팬도 용화될 때 태선이 말이야
So, whatever virtue one is creating, if in the beginning one starts the virtue with a very good heart, with very kind heart, and while doing the virtue, having a mind which is unwavering, staying focused single-pointedly, and at the end, making a dedication in order to benefit all sentient beings, then these virtues that one is creating will be of benefit, for sure. There's no doubt that they will be of benefit to many sentient beings.
일단 가도나 소소그 샘바 항상 짱마 요소나 아니 배디 항상 기침벌이 되베 코로나 샘바 짱마 요나 될 때네 그 통마인 거 미국 통화요만 걸 누가 지겨래
And so at all times, if one has an unbelievably pure heart, and with that pure heart doing the virtue, then this has a unique power to that, like an uncommon power, and this creates a lot of benefits. There are many things we cannot see with our eyes.
제가 되는 바상다 소소 롭종 지나래 삼노탄나래 곰잔나래 냠네 가르 지나 셈바 항상에 정마 토섬 검신 냠네 가르치는 베셈 정마 저신이 정마세 된 지킨 쇼지게 남토당 레도다 남토 그런도 샤게 망바 디가나 다동야 디가나 가르고서 그런데 상포 타이베 심지 탐지라 베 자시자다가 펜셈게 그런 안테네 지게바 좀 지메 가서 셈지는 망와치야 아니 되는 게가 득자 위치에서 뭐 마음이 예뻐져야 항상 기침버려
So at all times, it's very important to have extremely good motivation, extremely clean, like pure motivation. And starting from having a mind which is not under the power of the 8 worldly concerns, and also not falling under like hopes and fears and misconceptions. But not only that, but together with that, also having extremely kind heart and the wish really for all sentient beings to get the highest benefit and to attain the state of Buddhahood. And with that motivation, if one is able to practice virtue, then also the benefits are will be really great.
어다 되는 시대바이나 안 챈들라야 소소 sem치만 볼 텐팅 펜도 시대 그래 다들 맞나야 기반 새롭 다 조비 값을 하는데 소소 sem치나 펜도 시야 만도 조그래
And if one has this kind of motivation, then in this very life, one will be able to benefit many sentient beings. And even if not in this very life, if one keeps this motivation, the more one is able to cultivate this motivation, the more benefit one will be able to give more and more and more and more all the time.
어디 항상 기침버리데 제가 소소 도삼 검성 가래 지나 되게 가르쳐서나 그런 약보 sem치나 많이 와 뭐만 약보 잡고 백 기침버리
And so this is extremely important. And whatever virtue one is doing, it's very extremely important in the beginning to have the motivation, good motivation, in the actual action, a mind which is not wandering, and at the end making a good dedication prayer. And so these three are extremely important.
제가 나랑 다치게나 시버시버다 매 항상 개개인배 촉도 길어봐 내가 말해지 얘나 나랑 개개인 여태 창스지 요래 근데 개체시 말한 거랑 셈나는 가 땡수 열세서나 셈바짱 마치야다 꿀롱약 먹기는 셈바짱 마치야다 안 소소 펜셈 치야다 안에 즉 제스모 말람 자야 다디 백 강습제도 나랑 근유가 상마대 지득이
And so also as for myself, I'm not saying that I am, like the most supreme of all teachers, but I do fulfill the qualities for a teacher. And when I teach, I have confidence in myself that I teach with a really, really pure motivation, that I have a good motivation, and in the actual time of teaching, I have a mind which is focused on really benefiting, and a mind which really comes with the wish to benefit and to give only benefit, and in the end to make a good dedication prayer. So this is something that I really make a lot of, that I strive to do, and I also I trust myself that I have these qualities.
ngema soso lobjong chebe kapse na yang soso gegen de so pe sangjile ta mat na yang pe changchu semba chi ten tin ge sam soso dang na jang na ka du na simping de 직 대바 당 단지 요 me ba wo chi de ba song da ko de le din soso pe pen to yong do an yu ne soso ge chu de so la pen to ten yong
And in the past, at the time that I was studying, even if I was not able sometimes to see my teachers as Buddhas, I was trying to see all my teachers as Bodhisattvas, and I thought for sure there are at least Bodhisattvas, and I had that kind of confidence, and I was cultivating this kind of pure view in regards to my teachers, and because I was cultivating this pure view, I was able to receive a lot of benefit to myself. And because of that, also indirectly, you're able to receive a lot of benefit because I was having so much respect and trust in my teachers.
네 강탈 장 소소 개개는 제당 직 단다 나랑 그 직선진 디스펜도 형돼야 되시다 점으로 보시 조시 자빌라마다 기베히니 남기 까진게 도시 진압 된데 용되기요.
And in any way, the fact that I'm able to benefit a little bit is definitely because of the kindness of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and his blessings.
제당다 기란주 단다 나라 직문에다는 20대 구협배 망버치기 요래 대치와 나히 소소 개개인 간드지기나 상말라 구협다 20시야를 베케신 버래.
And so right now you all have really a lot of, from the depths of your heart, you put a lot of trust in me, and you have a lot of faith in me, and you really show me respect, a lot of respect from the depths of your heart. And in the same way, I also ask you to have that kind of respect for any teacher that you have. I ask you to have this kind of respect and this kind of trust in that teacher.
안 라파데 계란서 쇼로당 펜스 단다 롭중 냠도 제게 쇼로당 펜스라 제기실에 구협당 안에 베직 디치야 소센치야데 항상 계신 버래.
Especially for one another, between one another, the Dharma friends that we are. So to have really most important is that you have respect to one another, that you have respect to one another and patience to one another. This is extremely important.
네 계란서 베가르센 잠블링 디간에 다 가르세서는 메동실 두치사지 요소나야 소소 롭중신 냠도 곰겸네 냠도 냠내신 냠도 차된 게 메카세 루다디 항상 가르 계신 버다. 시당 안에식 샤바상바지야 냠도 좀바삼기 계신 버시오라. 다 디나네 계란서 가래 롭중시도 냠도 곰겹도 냠도 냠내시도 냠도 저바트네시도 냠도 다 상마디 냠도시 베나 자빌라마네 자바른 버시에나 다 자빌라마가 자마 라마 치파 니 계란서 자마 롭중시베 값 개긴 치파 되는 롭종 시베 값에 즉 롭종 시베 값이 양고 주로 찍봐 어다데 냐내신 곰자베 값을 찍봐 그런데 항상 잠을링는데 되네 배전에 용 무시바 나기르디 제가 주로 세야 소소베 다 너무리야베 사시바 저거에 뺏기신 버려
And if we look at the world, so in the world there are, more than 7 billion human beings. But out of all the 7 billion human beings that there are more than, so we are gathered together from all the people we could have studied with. These are the people, like we are the people who are studying together. And so we have this connection, this special connection with one another to come together in order to do this good action, in order to study Dharma, in order to benefit all sentient beings. So we have this connection to meet and to study together for this purpose. And not only that, but we all have the same root guru, and we all have the same teacher. Like I'm your teacher, and and so having this kind of connection, this is extremely precious. This is extremely important, and this is more important than being like brothers and sisters in one family. This connection, Dharma connection that we have, is much more precious even than that.
제단다 남중 가서 파마직발이야 파마직발에 가르쳐 계셔야 되는데서는 소다르게 동반냠도 싫어도 계셔야 되고.
And so usually we say that people who took the self-liberation vows together, the connection between those who have taken the self-liberation vow together is more precious than the connection between brothers and sisters to the same parents.
파마직발에 소소 파마직가 파식마직가 분야에 장 소다르게 동반냠도 싫어도 계셔 못 저기 제단 지나도 장마데 괜히 동반냠도 겸으로 같이 잘해 휴대여다 된대지네 냠도 희외로 화인 봐서도 파마직가 비실에 자셔.
And so, like saying, first of all, that if people take together the self-liberation vows, the pratimoksha vows, so this is more precious, the connection between the people is more precious than the connection between children to the same parents. And since you all have taken the pratimoksha vows from His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, so the connection that you have between one another is more precious than the connection between like children to the same parents.
Which padimoksha?
So tawe dompa.
So tawas 괜히 동반안 바니.
Lasso.
So tawe 동반은 담라요.
So taking the pratimoksha vows from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and specifically taking the lay pratimoksha vows from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So you have all taken the lay pratimoksha vows from His Holiness, and you have this connection.
제단 특집 디 만다나 데 인디야 말이야. 디 안다 디 가나 소사 동반냠도 히로리아 가르치 계제 저거는 장수선배 동반냠도 계제 뭐 저거 제단 지나서 먼저 점이다. 경우는 뭐 시큰들네 장수선배 동반가서 냠도 휴자.
And even more precious than taking the pratimoksha vows, the lay pratimoksha vows, or the pratimoksha vows in general, more precious than taking the pratimoksha vows, is taking the bodhisattva vows. And we have taken the bodhisattva vows from His Holiness the Dalai Lama so many times together.
제단 장수선배 동반냠도 히로리아 상가 동반냠도 히로 계시 뭐 저거다. 먼저 경우는 뭐 시큰들에 상가 동반가서 냠도 휴자.
And even more precious than taking the bodhisattva vows is taking the tantric vows. And we have taken the tantric vows from His Holiness the Dalai Lama also so many times.
제단 티간다 베긴직 봐.
And on top of that, also having the same teacher.
다 되네. 로브종시디 냠도.
And studying together.
아니 로링시디 냠도.
And making discussions together.
되네 곰잡이 냠도.
And meditating together.
제단 개바 참마도 딩가서 냠도 도와.
So all the virtues we accomplish together, right?
이는 가서 대파시디 냠도 못 도와.
But our negativities, we don't do that together, right?
개바시디 냠도 도와.
We came together to practice virtue, right?
항상 개치 뭐래.
This is extremely important.
근데 임바선자 직배나 개긴간다 지기나양 이 장수선배 템데 줄이요 말에 동반이 또왜 히랍된데 요 말에 이나양 군혼 넘버 타바지 요 배가나 안 소소 조남 지 카운터 쳬듯이네 아니 뜻이 된게 아니 소소 지 가르세서나 지 군혼 넘버 타바친게 아니 로종 하나 지 강나 강사 오지 약고 요 된게 제단 개긴 차진 상와 차的有的这两个肯定把从这个底下的样子 소남 첨부 차비요.
And so from my side as a teacher, I'm not saying that I'm, the highest and best of all teachers, but when it comes to my motivation, I really have like a pure motivation. I really do my everything in order to teach with 100% pure motivation, and only in order to give benefit. And so, as a teacher, you are fortunate. In that sense, you are fortunate. You have good merit to have a good teacher.
제가 내 길에 지금 내정 상승 양 따베가 따와돼서 주문만이 와 맨데 양.
And even though I don't have the unfabricated definite emergence bodhicitta and right view in my continuum,
강습 시트라 내정 상승 양 따베 따와서나 대파당 뭐가 유된게.
I do my very best to have faith and strong conviction about definite emergence bodhicitta and the right view.
다 대직 내정 상승 양 따베 따와서나 즉 대파당 뭐가 유가 찌고 많이 와 니마레네 강습 시트 소소 냠네치 된게.
And not only that I have faith and strong conviction about the threefold definite emergence bodhicitta and right view, but on a daily basis, I do my very best to practice as these three principal aspects.
예, 물에 이제 시작나 내정 상승 양 따베 따와서 이제 시작. 소소 냠네치는 내정 상승 이 상승 양 따베 따와서 냠네 강습 시트 제 된게. 지금 간도 된지 소소 대차비가 상당히 오더라다.
And so when I explain to others, I explain out of the threefold definite emergence bodhicitta and the right view. When I practice with the threefold definite emergence bodhicitta and right view. And so this is where we are, and it's quite, our situation is quite good.
제당이나다 내내조 자성양 답에 따라서 냠내시 돼야지 나랑 좀 전에 말에 저 개비 힘이 남다 저 점문은 보셔야 답이라 만남이 두지시나 된 친구요.
And my practice of definite emergence bodhicitta and the right view, my aspiration and desire to practice that, this doesn't come from my own greatness or my own great kind of skills, but this comes because of the kindness of my lamas and my root teachers that showed me how to practice.
그다음에 내 봐선다 지난서 양고 단다 롭정치야 당 나도 내정 상승양 답에 따라서 냠내시야 되고 소소 잡이라면 가진 때는 나랑 연구열에는 나랑 게 소소 다디 셈땡 인도 요가 선다 안텐데 지난서라 땡땡 가서 펜토고요 제단디 아주 가디는 냠내 가르치나 다 뉴욕 상마데 내정 상승양 답에 따라서 그나다 냠내 상마티 난 뒤트바지 그래서 뒤잖아 장수선데 다음에 또 히랍디 이나 냠내 제트바지 니라디 거
And so also for you, when we study together, when we listen, contemplate, meditate, it's very important that it's done with the wish to develop a definite emergence bodhicitta and the right view, and whatever practice we do to try to put it inside of these three, the definite emergence bodhicitta and the right view.
제단게 롭종 차네 제단 되는시 안 나랑 그 개긴 차네 에나야 사기까지 렉스 마제 야와는 뭐지 조치베 사기까지 렉스 마제베 라마 망보책당 라마당 캠버 망보책에네 베 바르세나 왕옥 시스템이나레 담가이나레 뱅가이나레 사마시네 사기까지 렉스 마제베 라마 요땡게 아니 나랑게나 사기까지 렉스 마제베 쇼로 롭종체 사기까지 렉스 마제베 라마라 당나장 사기까지 렉스 마제베 쇼로 차타나 냠내시 이 소소규를 컨트제도 제땡게 어떤지 지켜나서 개개인 요가선다 한 지나서 가르치는 개개인 독서라는 рем도아 항상 약보다 배 된다 단자와도 말이 되나 개개인 가르치는 개개인 저게 도다
And in my life, I have received teachings, and I went to ask for teachings from teachers, great teachers from all the four lineages of the Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma, and Gelug. And also, I've practiced the four lineages, and I made the very best in order to really develop a pure view for all the four lineages, practicing all the practices like in order to cultivate the practices not all the practices, but in order to cultivate the practices of the four lineages. So I really have this pure view. I really try to have this pure view about all the four lineages. I really have faith in all of them, and so this is the kind of teacher that you have, and so it's not really like a bad teacher, and so I'm not saying that I am the very 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 best teacher that can possibly be, but you have a teacher that you can rely on.
제 장게 어디에 맞서서 기능 조차 개긴나 고양 즉 샘팅이 가두나 그협도 제가 열때 양즉 남의 효과이나 단다도 개요 말은 지마 경우라 그랬다.
And so you really have respect from the depths of your heart. You have respect from the depths of your heart to me, and this really, it's good. But if you forget this, if it's something that you don't pay attention to, then right now it will be okay. There will not be a big problem. But in the future, if you forget the importance of having respect to one's teacher, so in the future you will get a problem because of that.
지마 때문에 개긴 때문에 뭐 락스 그래.
In the future, you might get a lot of teachers.
얘나 양 롭종 샤창 쇼록 리메를 롭종 시 된게 라마 리메 캬블라 똑 된게 즉 냠레나 디세 리메 시 된게 근데 토카포르다.
In the future, you might meet a lot of teachers, but to meet the teachers that have studied the entire teachings of the Buddha in their entirety, and also studying all the four lineages, and really paying like studying from great masters from the four lineages, bowing down one's head to the holy feet of great teachers and masters from the four lineages. So and really having like practice of all the four lineages. So to find such teacher in the future, like me, a teacher like me in the future, it will be a little difficult.
간데세.
Ani maumpa kianso ani gegen jamida di tuk sigire inean di tantan anshin ani sanger ki sung ani chatsang jangwa yo denken ani chulug rigshika ani jang denken rime jang denken ani chulug shika ki lamata chempo ditso ani shabla tuk denken ani di kalob shunken ani nananshin tende maumpa di tende jaya tis kakpoyore ani di shikala nyamlen tis yonken
es nondo 당고들 라메 상지 송차장라 나나 냠레 시 된게 라메게.
che mane jang denken.
대단 라메게.
So I made a little mistake in the translation, or a big mistake, because every small mistake is big. And so Rinpoche didn't say that he studied the entirety of the Buddha's teachings.
대나지 디제테발라 나나지 라카포레서 라메게.
And also I didn't say it will be hard to meet someone like me. I didn't use these words.
쇼룩 리메를 롭종 시 된게.
But someone who has studied the four traditions in a non-sectarian way.
라마 리메를 대파시네 즉 라마 리메 캬블라 똑 된게.
And bowing down one's head to the holy feet of the gurus, the lamas of the four traditions, having faith in the lamas of the four traditions.
아니 냠레나 즉 리메 토라 강습체도 냠레 시 된게.
And also in the practicing as much as possible the four lineages, the four traditions of Buddhism, the Sakya Kalug, Nyingma Gelug, practicing these four traditions in a non-sectarian way as much as possible.
근데 요레스.
Well, there are teachers like that.
지마 톡스그레스.
And you might meet teachers like that in the future. But there are not many like that.
나한테 잡아도 지금 택시하시 요레스.
And now you have a teacher which is kind of like that, just a kind of
Ina yang,
yeah, I never know how to translate tepsha.
ina
But
yang, tanda gegen tende chi yor das.
so having this kind of teacher right now.
Jidan gegen yo bi kapsara so kokab len ya chi jan zida kaptu trot ya nyen to ya keshin bole das.
So at the time of having such a teacher, it's really important to take hold of this opportunity and to come to class at all times as much as possible.
Oh, lobjong chi ya kokab kadu ni rakma das.
And you will not have this chance to study like this at all times.
Yamle chi ya kokab kadu ni rakma das.
You will not have the chance to practice at all times.
Jidan tanda cha dan yo de bi kapsala tusu tamzi chi ya keshin bole.
And so when the opportunity is here right now, it's very important to take hold of the opportunity.
tene ba sonda cho ching ni kyan so an lega tene go sonda so message chig na khala sa go sonda lega le go ya de ke chim bo res.
Now, on one hand, you need to work. You need to work to make money in order to have, food, in order to be able to sustain the life. And this is important.
Pinyam ton zinda de ke chim bo das.
And together with that, the class is extremely important.
Ka si nga le yo be yon te chang ma kyan so go na.
If you want to have all the qualities that I have,
Ka yi sena nge gen zida la nyen te ba che gre das.
then you must listen to my classes.
Da di des drink this zipo hi ma to chong ma so.
Now, today I had no other choice other than to be a little kind of, impressing, like trying to speak good about myself.
Ya da ga sen na de hi am do ba le sta chi jan ka yi sena ge yo ma de ngan do chang ma pe sen ba chang ma ji nang za da ba de hi hai ta hi ni do so.
So it's just I have the wish. The wish came to my mind to speak about it, and because we are all very close and we don't have any pretension and we are really very honest with one another, and so I had the wish. The wish came to my mind. I thought it will be beneficial to say that.
Ge gen ge sen ba chang ma da.
And so the teacher having a clean heart,
Ge tu sen ba chang ma nyam da zon na.
and if also the disciples have a clean heart, if these two come together,
Da. Shu rab je nam je hi rab gyur ki ya ko ko ya shu de.
then this is the best opportunity when two clean hearts come together. This is the best opportunity to give rise to wisdom that perfectly differentiates all phenomena.
An sem chen na pen to ya ko ko ya shu de.
And this is the best chance to benefit all sentient beings.
Da da nge tes ka ju tang de do cham cham na je lab je na tes cham cham chek ti su po tong do.
And sometimes I'm scolding a little bit. Sometimes the words which are a little kind of a little harsh are coming from my mouth sometimes.
Dina tanda la pen to na de gre tanda la pen ma to na je mal pen to ya tu zu yong gre.
And if it is beneficial right now, it's okay. And also if there will come a time in the future in which it will be beneficial, it's also okay.
Nge tes ji dong ba ge mo hyo ba ina.
And when I smile a little bit,
Ka du na pe ge mo hyo de ba ina.
if I would be smiling at all times,
Tanda ne ka kyan so pen gre.
in the short term, it will be beneficial for you.
Dina je ma pen gre sing ke ne ma re.
But I cannot say for sure that it will be beneficial also for the future.
Tanda nge dong ba na se de.
But if I show a face which is a little bit kind of severe
Ti su po hi na yang.
and say words which are a little bit harsh,
Sem na ne ku long chang ma yo na.
if I have a clean motivation inside,
Tanda no na yang je ma pen gre.
so it might hurt in present time, but in the future it will be beneficial.
De dang chu yin bo de sem ba chang ma che gre.
So the heart of the Dharma is to have a clean motivation.
So sem chak da an so nyo mo an ma ro che gre.
Not that in one's mind be overpowered by anger, attachment, or ignorance.
Lob jong chi de ba de chak dang nyo mo ka ti cha ya ge chok sun ro che gre.
And whatever one is studying, always using it in order to oppose and overcome his afflictions.
다 롭종 지야데 가르세서나 초점지 남지 히랍기를 기야치들이 히랍기를 기야치 가르세서나 당직 묘모 매파소야시들이
So whatever is studied is in order to overcome the self-grasping, in order to overcome the self-grasping, the ignorance and the afflictions, to be an antidote for that.
제단 가드유나 소소 셈게 라운친지는 당지당 샤당 모습을 묘모도서 카티샤트나 같았나 아니 대기 무고세나 셈나 대기 무고세나 용그래
And so at all times, if one always uses the studies, the practice, in order to overcome the self-cherishing, the self-grasping, attachment and hatred and ignorance, if always one is using that for that purpose, so even if one doesn't want to be happy, happiness will still come automatically.
당지게 쇼그 랍자 참마디 아니 소소 셈 두샤드 매바차시들이
The entirety of the teachings of the Buddha is in order to make one's negative mind non-existent.
셈 두샤 매바차선 동시에 매바차한데
Once the negative mind becomes non-existent, all of the suffering, all of the afflictions become non-existent.
셈 두샤 매바차선 코비 동시에 매바차 그래서 에벤 카르시들이
Once all the negative mind become non-existent, so also all of the samsaric suffering become non-existent.
가이스는 코비 동시 탐지가 싸와도 셈 두샤 마리고도 차리야로
Because the root of the root of samsara is the negative minds which are rooted in ignorance.
제가 드리는 바선다 셈 두샤 가르세는 저거 이바 얘는 요모 제리히던 뉘샤나 잔용 쪽 년용이시 어디 셈 두샤
And the negative minds, when they are divided into extensively, they are divided into 84,000 afflictions, and more condensed ways, they are divided into 6 root afflictions and 20 secondary mental factors, 20 secondary afflictions.
년용이시들이
So the root of suffering is the 6 root afflictions and the 20 secondary afflictions.
어제다 다 몰라자 잡는 동의식이 전에 미현바지 강에 돈의 강에 가는 시기를 해서 그 강에 속이디 잔용주다 년이 힘 봐서는 데 매파서야 타는지 된 거예요.
And so when we give advice, if we wish to give advice to others, if we wish to practice, since the root of all suffering are the 6 root afflictions and the 20 secondary afflictions, we need to give advice, which is an advice how to overcome the 6 root afflictions and the 20 secondary afflictions.
데 담시가 잡아 머리고 힘 봐서는 좀 머리고 매파서야 타는 거든요도.
And since the root of this is ignorance, the main thing we need to check is how to make ignorance non-existent.
일단 머리고 매파서야 타는 이야기도 땡중 동록중시야 돼.
And the best way to make ignorance non-existent is to study about the meaning of dependent arising.
아니선 땡중적인 점을 동통하는 머리고 매파서야로요.
Because by seeing the meaning of dependent related origination, the ignorance becomes non-existent.
그럼 되는 봐서는 밖에 땡지도 변고라 지팅 그바 신이 바티 잡아 말을 때 강식 통회 대도가 땡징적인 점을 송어서 되다.
And so that's why in the praise of dependent origination by Lama Tsongkhapa, the second verse, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, whatever degenerations there are in the world, they are rooted in ignorance. By seeing that, one reverses the root of psychic existence by seeing that dependent arising.
다가나 이게 레이탕요모 세레타 레이탕요모 남토래 대답주와 주의 대답주의 주와는 동바 니기인가 먼저 싸 히란 당마들.
And also, liberation is the exhaustion of karma and afflictions. Karma and afflictions arise from misconceptions, which in turn arise from grasping, like self-grasping or elaborations. And by emptiness, this comes to cessation. So the verse of Nagarjuna in the Fundamental Wisdom. So also this heart advice.
다가나 이게 로봉 파파레 로봉 아리아 데베 땡징적인 점과 통의 땡무 좀 무지르스데.
And in the same way, whoever sees any sin as dependent arising, by seeing that ignorance is destroyed.
제가 직행 그바 친이가 대자 말을 때 강식 동에 대다가 대진대만 정화 송세다 제가 직행 그바세 말에 코비 직행세 코바래 코비 동네 탐지가 그바 탐지가 짜와데 가르스는 말이 그래서 강식 동에서 대진대만 정화 동강이 통화이나 말을 그때 내가 써서 그랬어 근데 이바 son서 동바상게 좀 되겠다 코비 탐지가 동네 탐지가 짜와 말이 그바도 내가 자지된 대진대만 정화 송송하랬을 때 항상 되지다.
And so also like Lama Tsongkhapa in the Praise of Dependent Origination, second verse is saying, roughly translated, is saying, whatever degenerations there are in the world, and the world refers to samsara, whatever degenerations, whatever suffering and problems and kind of deterioration that there are in the world, they are all rooted in ignorance. By seeing that dependent arising, one is led to liberation, I think, or one is led to enlightenment. So basically, the root of all samsaric suffering is ignorance, and by seeing that dependent arising, one is freed from ignorance.
제단다 제랑도 차창게네 배 샘나네 어다 상계다 전선바지 소소 개개의 상계다 전선바지 종나 산레바 잡에 얘기되디 소소 유마다 받데 타마르바 나타 마토 용토 마다기니.
And so I guess in your heart you have really a strong wish to have a teacher who is a Buddha or a teacher who is a Bodhisattva. But until you purify your continuum, you have just enough merit to meet a teacher, an ordinary teacher, ordinary person, like myself.
정말 유탁소나?
Later on, when your continuum is purified,
제랑도 상계 전선바든지 개개의 라카레 빼야버리. 개개가 거예요 말에.
Later, when your continuum is purified and you get a teacher who is Buddha or Bodhisattva, this is really great. And at that time, you will not need me as your teacher. But until your continuum is pure, then also having like an ordinary teacher, like myself, is beneficial. I also was thinking like this in the past. I was thinking, I really need teachers I really need lamas and teachers who are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
개개인 타마를 되는 거 고메 상제 가봐요. 정신바 가봐요. 개개인 개개인 라마도 정신바 고요. 상제 고요. 좀고서 여튼 거네 고요. 무시진 고요. 전주진 고요. 단단한 상제 설치 등에 되는 고요. 스마디 키라도 가봐요. 날에 디 람테노나 아니 네 람사베 냠네 지금 공작이 있으나 되는 산 뭐 땅이.
I remember myself thinking many times, I need teachers and lamas who are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and where can I find such teachers? And if you would come, I will follow everything you say. I will practice just like you tell me. And so please come. Where are the teachers who are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? Many times I was thinking like that.
Buddha, where are you, Buddha? Where are you, Bodhisattva? Please come. Because I have now, I'm study meditation, then contemplation, that I really like meditation. Please come, Buddha and Bodhisattva, all come, please. I need a good teacher. Because Buddha and Bodhisattva, you are very good teacher, the excellent teacher. So please come, Buddha, Bodhisattva, great good teacher, where are you? Because I am study, learning, contemplation. If I have a good teacher, then I, of course, study very well. Of course, meditation very well. Of course, I can do. So then they every day I think like that.
I thought like that every day.
that in the young.
But I couldn't meet with the Buddhas, right? I couldn't meet with the Bodhisattvas, right?
그래서 타마로 이봐서 개개 타마로 짱짱 딱 제디도 와.
And because I'm ordinary, I was also meeting ordinary teachers all the times, right?
이나 양 개개 타마로 또 까진나 때네.
Because of the kindness of these ordinary teachers.
다 타마로 봐 나타 비시게 센티 망볼 펜토에 착도 와.
Because of the kindness of the teachers, so also an ordinary person like myself is able to benefit many sentient beings as a result.
제가 타마로 봐 나타 비시게 센티 망볼 펜토에 수까지데 개개 타마로 또 까지지다.
And so the ability of an ordinary person like myself to benefit so many people, so many sentient beings, is because of the kindness of my ordinary teachers.
개개 타마로 봤을 때 말이야 삼노 두샤탄지어 마다 개개 처음에 줬을 때 삼탄지어 마다.
And saying ordinary teachers, I don't mean in a negative, you shouldn't take it as something negative, as if I'm saying something negative.
타마로 봤을 때 미 넘버 10 되게. 하이 남체 많이 배 상지가 남체 많이 배미 넘버 샷되베. 딱 pendant 나도 미가 타마로 봤을 때 나도 미 루틴 타마로 차되어라. 다 디소소 페치 땡켄데 미 넘버 샷되게.
When I say ordinary, I mean appearing as a human being, taking the aspect of a human being, not appearing as a deity or as a Buddha, but taking the aspect of a human being and with a human body, giving the Dharma teachings.
옛날 가르쳐서나 다 무엇을 다 야वर 버친다 지금 무엇을 상계 당신은 sempre 주가 임바 야시게 하면 탁쇼 잘해. 얘나다디 경우로 버친가도 제발 미 넘버 샷 독마도 나도 제득무도.
For example, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, there's no doubt that His Holiness is a manifestation of a Buddha or Bodhisattva. But in order for us to be able to receive teachings from His Holiness takes the aspect of an ordinary human being in order to give us teachings.
제당 나도 단대지 초 냠레시아 곰도와 냠레시아 대상마 가리까지 있어서 경우로 버치 상계 당신은 sempre 쪽도 제바한테 또 하요나야 미그 넘버 타마로 미그 넘버지 땡바 임바서 나도 지야 거기 락바를 될 때네 경우로 지납 상황 나도 해도기요.
And so the fact that we are able to practice Dharma, the fact that we are able to study, contemplate, meditate, is because of His Holiness taking this aspect of an ordinary human being. And with the aspect of an ordinary human being, His Holiness is giving us the Dharma teachings so that we will be able to practice.
같이 경우로 버치 상계 당신은 sempre 주가 임바나 상계 당신은 sempre 유기는 나도 제도기요 말.
If His Holiness would manifest as a Buddha or Bodhisattva, and in this way give Dharma teachings, we will not be able to receive these teachings.
시다 들리 임바선다 다 가진기 차네 제소나 경우로 진짜 제 나도 두순 상계 탐지를 시에 차대요.
So when it comes to the kindness, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is kinder to us than all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times.
제당 소소 개개인데 내 상계나 있다 그래서 나가나 소소 개개인데 상계나 있다 그래서 그런데 다 김전 가르쳐네 개개인 상계 인장으로 민장으로 동대 가르쳐서는 가진데 상계를 하여 와서다 디찬이 송기요.
And so in the Tantra, it is said that one should see one's teacher as the Buddha. But seeing one's teacher as the Buddha is not about whether the teacher is the Buddha or not, but about the kindness of the teacher. And in the sense of the kindness of the teacher is kinder than all the Buddhas to oneself.
제당이 나랑 셈나래 상계다 전선 바탕마 단다라는 때에 구혈론 바 진도요 나야 때 나랑 유마다 와서다 제도고만도 와스.
And so even though I have the wish to meet with all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to receive teachings, but even though I have that wish, I'm not able to do that, right?
In the 상계다 전선 바 카톡도 제마도 나야 상계를 라베 장실을 셈발에 배제 라바게 안에 리그 주바 야원 버치 양원도 증제야 정화데 나도 전 이 맛이라 아저 가래는세 나도 이 맛다가 늘어지기 내가 상계다 전선 받은 게 가르침 지기요 말했어 나랑 그 세워지 싸고요 대사는 다 산지다 전세바는 가와지 가라 유타요 말이 이나야 산지다 전세바가 답에 신업 탐지 비직 누가나 이 겨울 뭐지 아주 제트고요 등에 카르지는 제트고요 하사야 나라 타마다 느리지기나 겨울 뭐지 느리 제트고요 그랬으니 야 나랑 나라 니 하상이었다 내마는 제 마트바 하상이요 나는 제트바 하상이요
And even though we are not able to meet with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, when I think about the fact that I'm able to meet with someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is like the blessings of His Holiness, we might say, is even greater than the blessings of the Bodhisattvas. And His Holiness is like all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas come together, like taking the blessings of all the Buddhas Bodhisattvas together in someone that takes the aspect of an ordinary human being. And so being able to meet with such person, I'm amazed how someone with a mind so impure like myself is able to meet with a teacher like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And in the past, I used to be so, I used to wonder why I'm not able to meet with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. But this day, I wonder how I am able to meet with such an amazing teacher like His Holiness.
나랑 냠내 제가 매대게
And so someone like myself that doesn't have a lot of practice.
로좀 하사야 매대게 디스디스야 로좀 대스지 냠내 대스지
And someone that like myself that doesn't have like an amazing great amount of learning studies, just a little bit of studies and just a little bit, just a tiny bit of practice.
소소께와 타마바직
Someone like me, just an ordinary being.
이나 다도 야와는 뭐지 제트바디
But still being able to meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
이 맛이야 돼
So this is really unbelievable. Hard to believe.
나랑 참서 썸당 다 모네시네 즉 상기다 전선 받은 게 가원 제트 야와는 뭐지들이 제 받은 게 캔슬 소놈 가르사 있나 썸문에 즉 썸당디 다 페셔 상기다 전선 받 탐지게 투게 모람당 담자당 근데 봐서도 상기가 들어와다 상기다 전선 받아서 카톡도 제 받던다야 그래서 투게다 모람을 때네 텐텐시 장난 즉 그래서 상매게 타마게 나바데는 샘싱 동 저기 와서다 뭐네 경우로 제대 뭐네 즉 상기다 전선 받 상매게다 신하고 공부해야 돼. 뭐네 전들이 삼바 전선 받는 데 상기세는 데 있어서 삼기열에 이나다데 상기다 전선 받는 거 인투요 맞다 양처럼도 삼디고 다 경계 여러 번째 상기에 세건 삼고서를 전선을 발상 같은 이거도 인투요서 삼내야 나와다 제가 소소 삼다나 소소 즉 여러 번째라서 장수 선바 인삼나 전선 비전업 소소를 연구해 여러 번째 상기 모근도 힌토나 소소를 상기 모기 전업 연구해 시단 때마다 지금 상기다 전선 받는 인투요 맞다 세상 소소군 생각문에 여러 번째 전선 받다든나 전선 비전업 연구해 상기 못 다든나 상기 전업 연구해 뭐들 제가 din데 시시하이 때마다 야 어디 상계다 전선 받니 버디 힘이어서 삼나야 맞아마 게모쇼 답변자다 만용계는 개요 맞다 용계는 게모쇼다 개개인検査 신시원도 게루트서検査 신여사 삼그래
And so when I think about it, I see it as a proof that the prayers of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are really so powerful. And the reason that I think that the prayers of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas are so powerful is because even for someone like me, it is possible to meet with a teacher like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And when I think about how is it possible for me to meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I think, it is the power of their prayers, of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, that they are even able to come as ordinary beings, to take the aspect of ordinary beings, and with that aspect, to give benefit to sentient beings. And so I'm really amazed by the power of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so strong that they are even able to benefit obscured sentient beings. And so when I think about this, it gives more faith in my mind to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't say that there is a common basis, that there is something which is both a Buddha and a Bodhisattva. There is no common basis to a Buddha and a Bodhisattva. These two are completely different. But it depends on oneself, the way one thinks. if one thinks that His Holiness is actually a Buddha, then one will receive the blessings of the Buddhas from His Holiness. And if one thinks that His Holiness is a Bodhisattva, one will receive the blessings of Bodhisattvas from His Holiness. And so don't misunderstand thinking that there's common base between Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. If we say that to other people, they will find it funny that there is something which is both.
Yeah, that thing on the petty day. You might have petty chip, but you can take into the petty sums and petty consumer this China.
And so today is the class. If we every day have like ordinary teachings, it can be a little kind of boring. And so I thought sometimes we can have a little kind of random, a little different class, and that will also be good. So if my advice is beneficial for you, so keep it, and if not, you can just throw it away. And so at all times, having a good motivation before creating any virtue, having a good motivation, it's the actual time of the virtue, a mind which is not wandering and non-wavering, and at the end making a good dedication, then there is no doubt that you will be able to bring benefit to many sentient beings.
Lama Yedam Namji Kuson to Shinap, Yani and the Chenya, and the Kuno Sambokia, and one more Yahoja, the vacation body.
So at all times to study and to receive the blessings, to remember and to receive the blessings of the lamas, the idams, and to make good dedication. So to do it at all times, it's very, very important.
What that in the Chiba, and then that may you know Jigmato, may you mato pentomodo, the Kiranzo Malia, the Sentia Ma Pentoya, and Molam down, Chatan Japping.
And if you keep doing that, so right now I'm only benefiting just a few people, right? But I make prayers for you in the future to be able to benefit much more than me, to be able to benefit like millions and millions of people. I keep praying like that.
Oh, you might get some make Marriage, Sensia Tonkin Mombol and Zabbing the Pentosona, and Nege, Kaligabe Kochu the year, Nanzutami Kaligabe Kochu the year.
And so in the future, if each one of my disciples, you will be benefiting like millions and hundreds of millions of people. So my hardships will be for really well made, and also your hardships. So all of the hardships that we have been going through, they will really go for the best purpose if you will be able to benefit millions and millions of people.
Kasi gigging a Kaligam, Petty, they were the cutting chimbo in some Giona, Tenin Jago some Giona, Tenin Jia Tabi Yahudi, Simpson and Pentosia.
And so if you feel that me as your teacher, I'm really kind to you, giving you teachings, and if you want to repay my kindness, so the best way you can do that is by benefiting sentient beings.
Oh, Simpson and Pentosia Tabi Yahudi Garcesona, Mehi Mobas in Hirag make Jimbatangre.
And the best way to benefit sentient beings is by alleviating the darkness of ignorance, by giving the eyes of wisdom.
Oh, Landogne, Manor Tengre.
And showing what needs to be adopted, abandoned in an unmistaken way.
But some over it.
And to make one's mind clean.
Oh, that condition. So, yeah, that condition what the hearing that condition, then some condition.
So this is what I will say for today, and I will conclude at this point.
That thing was a petty, petting goes over in that.
And then the class. So let's start with the Dharma class.
That is. 다들 가르쳐서는 가져다 다들 가르치고 그러잖아. 릭릭 생도와. 다 제단 가르치고 그래서는 가서 즉 삼도 약호 땅데 소 삼도 약호 땅데 땅아도 셈시 저는 셈시 잡는 도와. 셈시 잡는 상마데다 다들 동네 나서 같이 요래. 아니 땅 동네 나서 같이 요래 받아.
So when we speak about the nature, the Buddha nature, so there are different sentient beings in the world who have different suffering.
그냥 내시 버티시 고고스 말해. 땅아도 잠블링나 안에 배 셈시 나서 같이 망보신 도와.
So right now in this world there are many different kinds of sentient beings.
땅은 가서 참마데 배 동네 배 만두나 친년만나 조임 용된도.
And for all of us, even though we don't wish for suffering, we still have suffering coming, like the waves in the ocean.
잠블링나 강에 망용신 전도시바이나 찍리 찍 강에 치예요.
And if we would make a competition, who has more suffering in the world, so each one of us will have a good case to say that we have more suffering.
강에 전도시는 게 바트게요나 단다 바트 전용이요 말아. 단다 참마데 미스 야가요나 조남서 야가요나 야가 짱짱 게 바트 샤라바. 자 지마양 가르세네 잠블링나네 뭐 강에 체휴스이나 데 게바 스르기다 말아요나. 아니 잠블링나 강에 체휴스이.
So up to now, we would only give prizes for someone who is really good at something, someone who is benefiting, someone who is very good at something, we will give a prize. But suppose we would make, we would give a prize or a medal for someone who is having a lot of suffering. And we would say that we give a prize to the person who has the biggest amount, the most suffering in the world. So who do you think will get that prize?
강에 체휴 때라 능게 바 약히라히요나.
If having the biggest problem is a cause to get the biggest present,
잠블링네 라시 약이요 말해.
then there will be no people that commit suicide in the world.
생각고 강에 체휴이나 라시 야데 강에 첨보요 와서 라시 약이요라.
Because one commits suicide because of having a big problem, right?
그 강에 체휴이나 아니 게 약히도 라히요 와서 라시 약 말아네.
And so if having a big problem is a cause to get a great present, so one will not commit suicide, having a big problem.
세상 등산 강에 체휴딩에 바 약히라가 메바선자 뭐뭐바랑 시작도아.
But these days, since those who have the biggest problems don't get the best prize, that's why there are many people who commit suicide.
지방 나 pombo 차바이나게 차바이나 세거데 차가 맞다. 차바이나 내 강에 체휴딩에 바 약히트사 때는 라시 약 말해.
Later on, if I become the leader of the world, now suppose I will become the leader of the world. I have no intention to do that, but suppose I become the leader of the world, then I would definitely start this, costume of giving the biggest prize to the person who has the biggest suffering. So to whatever extent one has a problem, to that extent I will give a bigger present. And if one if I would give the one who has the biggest problem the biggest present, the one who has a medium problem medium present, and the one who has a small problem a small present, then there is a new problem of people not having problems. And some, even though not having a problem, they will start pretending to have a problem.
Just kidding. 세상다. 강에 뒤강에 달게 봐 약휴 강에 체휴를 봐 체휴에 가르쳐서나 저는 치는 가르쳐서.
So if I give the biggest present to the person who has the biggest problem, which kind of present do you think would be the present I would be giving? So actually it will be an advice. To the person who has the biggest problem, I will give my best advice.
맥강이 체큐체리아나 티값에 콜펜토 체큐티가 랍자 야히데.
When I meet with someone who has the biggest problem, the
왜 밑에
best.
갈 맥강이 체큐디 에슬라메바 맥강이 체큐데라 가르세소나 고 멤바 야휴디 가르세소나 랍자 야휴디레세.
It's not me, but generally, when meeting someone who has the biggest problem, so the best present that one can give is to give the best advice.
잠블링다 맥강이 체큐데라 콩멤바 야휴데 정멤바 야휴 가르테 그르세소나 랍자레 랍자 야휴디레.
And so if one meets with someone who has the biggest problem in the world and one wishes to give the best present is to give the best advice.
랍자 야휴데 터마다 세바 소소 남추를 잘레그레. 소소 남추 야고 있거래 랍자 야고데 터고 남추 야고면은 랍자 야고데만 남추 딩딩 랍자데 남추 총총이나 랍자 총총마도 야토 말바.
And giving the best advice depends on one's intelligence. If one has really the best wisdom, discriminative wisdom, then one can give the best advice. And if one has the medium discriminative wisdom, then one can give a medium advice. If one has just a small discriminative wisdom, then one can only give a small advice.
라시 장게에서 가르세서는 소소게 삼단다 마히르딘 라시 야베요마다 삼단다 히드딘 라시 야베요마레.
And those who commit suicide, they commit suicide because of not knowing how to think. There's not a single person who commits suicide because of knowing how to think.
근데 이 말씀다 가르세선 잠블링은 아주 초식니베 장주 얘기 땅야땅 랍자 얘기 땅야 그래서 항상 가요라 배편도 심벌.
And so for us to increase the good conduct in the world and the good advice.
내가만 배는 게 근데 이 말씀은 잠블링라 장주 얘기 땅야땅 참체 얘기 땅야땅 랍자 배데 양양 잡고야 항상 계신벌에세.
And so in this world, it's extremely important to increase the love and kindness and to increase the good conduct and to increase the good advice. So
잠블링나
in this world,
참체 얘기 땅야
to have more love and compassion.
참체 얘기 땅스는 가래.
To have more love and compassion, to increase love and compassion.
then 상주 얘기 땅야.
And to increase, to increase love and kindness, love and compassion.
북숑숑 갑니 콜레베 세미나에 강에 가세야 동네시도 약 랍자 사포자 베케신벌.
And from the time that the child is very small, to give advice that show how to face problems, how to overcome them, and how to increase love and compassion. This is very, very important.
냐. 사디 karmangna de lengi tsas ta de shin tangan de chetan rexedi ma chetan zambleng tangan zo semche tama dungme ma ba yo ba songza ta de dungme thare yo ri yo mare se tangan zo jewa de tangan zo dungme yo ha ko do ta na nga zo dungme ma ba yo ba songza dungme de song nga zo gor go mar se dungme mo go se dungme go se ke che ya ma chame dungme mo go se ta dungme mo go se de ma le ane dungme de ta sam ta na dungme de ane tsawa de me pa so yo ri yo mare se chba le gra.
Now, what we know for sure is that there are a lot of suffering in the world. And the question is there a way to be free from suffering? Because there's no doubt that we want to be free from suffering. But is there a way to be free from suffering? And is there a way to be completely free from all suffering?
동네 자원에 소에 요리 요마를 세디 말다 남배 응원의 시소나 동네 자원에 매파서 요리 송기요래.
So is there a way to make suffering completely non-existent or not? So according to Buddhism, there is a way to make suffering completely non-existent.
데키 타투가 더야 요리 요마를 세나 데키 타투가 요래. 동네 자원에 매파서 요래. 데키 타투가 더야 요래. 에스게요.
And is there a way to attain the 100% the perfect happiness? Yes, there is. According to Buddhism, there is a way to attain 100% happiness.
가르치는 세서는 샘 뒤나 내도 탐지가 자가다 샘을 통도 샘 뒤나 대기 용거래 샘 말이나 동네 용거래 독사 상마 샘을 통도 와서게요.
And what's the reason? The reason is that all of the happiness and suffering they are rooted in the mind. And so if the mind is subdued, then one will have happiness. And if the mind is not subdued, so one will not have a happiness.
다 가르쳐 야고니야. 많이는 요마다. 야고니는 배 책제 놓배 맞아. 왜 리퍼 좀 쇼가. 제다음에 들에 봐서나 다 안에 야 동네 가는지 매 봐서 그래. 내기 가는지 더 그래. 제소나 다 제랑 마바단도 대화돼서 깨차티바이나 먼저 잠을 동네 잠만 가는 매 봐서 그래. 내기 잠만 가는 더 그래. 제소나 다 가르쳐서나 파페 그게 이게 아니 냠내시네. 초시가 파페 그게 이게 아니 냠내지바이나 동네 차다 매 봐서 그래. 내기 잠만 더 그래. 송해요.
Now, what is the way to make suffering completely non-existent, and what is the way to have 100% happiness? Well, the Buddhism have or has 4 tenets, and out of the 4 tenets, the Vaibhashika Sutra school, the tradition of the hearers, they are saying that in order to completely eradicate the suffering and in order to have all happiness, one needs to practice the 4 Arya natures. And by practicing the 4 Arya natures, one will develop the realizations of Arya beings, and by this eliminating all suffering and attaining all happiness.
What is it? Nada chicken, why lapsare? Why? Do me some condition me for over. They get some condition joke the why. Marve.
So I would translate it differently. I will not say what is the way to do that, but I will say how is it possible to do that? Why do you say that it's possible? Why do you say that suffering can be eliminated? And the reason saying that suffering can be eliminated, according to the followers of the hearer tradition, is why is it possible? Because if one practices the 4 Arya natures, one is free from all suffering and attains all happiness.
또 인바 선자 대독 탐지 결된 정부 여와 선자 동해 고면은 동해 기초도 매 봐서 그래. 내기건 내기 기초도 그래서.
And so, since all of the suffering and all of the happiness are coming from causes, so if one wishes to be free from all suffering, one needs to abandon all the causes of suffering. One wishes for all happiness, one needs to create the cause of all happiness.
다 제데 너 대화다 제라마바다 년도 대화를 깨지티네. 아니 동해 탐지 결된 정 대기 탐지 결된 정부여나 대기 기초 가르치려 그래. 동해 기초 가르치 매 봐서 그래서 깨지려 그래.
And so if all happiness is coming from causes, and if all suffering are coming from causes, so if we ask the Vaibhashika and the Sutra school, the followers of the hearer tradition, what's the way to attain happiness, to be free from suffering? So the followers of the hearers tradition, they will say, well, in order to be free from suffering, you need to abandon the cause of suffering. And asking the tradition of the hearers,
동해 참만 가르치 매 봐서 그래. 대기 참만 가르치 그렇게 깨지티와이나.
asking the hearers tradition, what's the way to eliminate all suffering, and what's the way to accomplish all happiness?
그저 가르친 거잖아.
So what will they reply?
동해 참만 나다 나가지 말라 차베게 차과되니 용그래스.
Well, they would say all the suffering are coming from attachment to the I, and attachment to the mind.
제 동해 참만 나다 나가발라 차과되니 용구여가 선자. 다들 매봐서 동해 참 매봐서 그잖아. 나다 나가베 차베게 차긴 용모도 좀 매봐서 그래. 성기야.
And so if all suffering are coming from attachment to the I and to the mind, to I and my, so the way to eliminate all of the suffering will be by eliminating the attachment, making the attachment non-existent.
나다 안에 안에 나다 나가베게 차긴데 다 너야 하시더라. 가르쳐야 이어랬어야 말라. 파페서 기념는 식으로 성기야.
And then if we ask, well, what's the way to reverse this attachment, to reverse the attachment to the I and the mind? And they will reply, well, the way to reverse the attachment to the I and the mind is by practicing the 4 Arya natures as the antidote.
동해 참마 당일에 차와다. 나가베 뭐를 차베게 차과될 때네. 동해 참마 용구여 와서자. 다 동해 매봐서 그잖아. 다 나가발라 차베게 차베게 녀버데. 다 가서는 dag 세라 차와. dag 고라 차와. 안에 다가베게 세라 차와. 다그베 고라 차바 다그베 네말라 차바 돼서 용구여 와서다 다 디녀볼라 안에 소녀 명어 좀 초히와 네모 명어 좀 초히와 안에 가르세는 어 좋은 명어 좀 초히와 됐으면 그냥 내치바 이나 다그베 차베게 안에 레시가 봐 님보 문이신 다그베 차바도 봤다 고노데 체네 안에 뭐도 맞게바지 다 디제라 봉화탄 봉발을 세드 말라 고된 토비아시데 람기된 방념내 시바이나 어다테네 다그베 차바짱마데 자반네 바소도 그레스 어떤 식으로
Well, they say the suffering, all the suffering are coming from attachment to the I and attachment to the mind. So in order to reverse the attachment to what is mine, so reversing the attachment to my food, reversing the attachment to my clothing, reversing the attachment to my place of residence. And by doing that, one is like kind of like pushing down the attachment, pushing the manifest attachment. By that, one is taking care of the manifest attachment. And in order to cut attachment from the root, one needs to also deal with the attachment to the I. And in order to deal with the attachment to the I, to develop joy in abandonment and in meditation. And by doing that, one reverses completely the attachment to the I and the attachment to the mind.
뭐 대답이 바뀌게 기기 냠내 제바 이나 다단 다가베 샤바 상아 바네 동네 상아 매바소네 안에 대기 타도 탑도 그래서 비어
And by this, by reversing the attachment to the I and the mind in this way, by practicing the 4 Arya natures, one is able to completely be free from attachment and from samsaric suffering and to attain state of liberation.
대답이 그 바뀌게 기기 냠내 제바 때네 안에 바뀌게 사람이한테 길게 달려된 셈된 게 당진의 사원도 바네 안에 다시 비 컴파 탑도 그래서 비어
And by practicing the 4 Arya natures in this way, one can completely abandon all the ignorance from one's continuum, and in this way to attain the state of a foe destroyer, having all the qualities. By practicing the 4 Arya natures, giving rise to the qualities of the ground and paths of Arya beings.
벨라티네 다가발라서가 차페게다 요모토서 바빵네 아니 데킨타토가 라션베 컴파 토토 그래서
Giving rise to all the realizations and all the qualities of all the Arya beings, and by doing that to abandon completely the attachment to the I and the attachment to the mind, and by doing that to attain to attain the state of a foe destroyer.
일단 다가베 차바세디 말에 인증은 도착고 말에 당진아 거예요.
And so right now, when we say being attached to the I and to the mind, it doesn't necessarily mean to be it doesn't necessarily mean attachment, but it can also be understood as a self-grasping.
어다데 데고 들라 고야 도와 데레베 고야베 고야 야심도 도와.
If you think about it as self-grasping, does it make sense? Does it give a more does it give a very vast meaning?
일단 파페 이렇게 냠내 시발 때네 동메메 파소야 단데 희용화 시알 페토페 심보도와.
And so by practicing the 4 Arya natures, is there a great benefit? Is there a great benefit in order to abandon the afflictions, in order to abandon suffering, and to attain all happiness?
일단 대solta 니도 데비자 다데 렉시아 드니시 무지시가 예스기야.
So the followers of the Hero tradition, this is how they recognize the nature.
나한테는 백신이 말할 게 있었지나?
And then asking the great vehicle about this.
동네처럼 매파서요. 데키처럼 돼요. yes.
They will say, yes, it is possible to make all the suffering non-existent, and it is possible to attain all happiness.
아니선 동네 게 매파서야 도가 데키 게 타도가 주변도가 아스기야.
Because the cause of suffering can be made non-existent, and the cause of happiness can be accomplished.
다들 택신 데라다 엄마바다 셈잠바 인체네. 다 셈잠베게 가르제 시작이었으나.
So the great vehicles, they are divided into the mind only and into the middle way. So how does the how does the mind only explain, how do they explain the nature?
샘잠베 샘시타마 데키 에드야 요레 안에 동에 메파사 요레 스기요레.
So the mind only are saying that all sentient beings can be free from all suffering, and all sentient beings can attain all happiness.
가르치는데서나
And why?
탐시가 자와 샘라 통도 안에 샘그 땡라 동에 제롱다 네바 드롱 레도아세 샘그 땡라 동에 제롱다 안에 연태 깨롱 데키 드롱 누바신도 아스기야.
Why is it that all sentient beings can be free from all suffering, attain all happiness? Because all suffering and happiness are coming from the mind, and the mind has the innate ability to be free from all suffering and to attain all happiness.
동맹게 교세 약혼이야 동맹게 교대 마르바트 착소다 마르바트서 차디 요레 다디 안에 샘 코랑 그 힐 내요 말 샘 코랑 그 뭐를 접이요 말에 데 주마 로벌 붙어데 주마 제롱 붙어데 내디 요레스 근데 샘 코랑 연해 베카르선 파운토고 연해 유레 계롱 그 누바 어다 힐업 유레 계롱 누바 파페가 람 유레 계롱 누바 샘팅라 너나 샘 그팅라 주마 제롱당 연해 계롱 그 누바식도 사미 사운지 어다디 상지 다디 제그리 다디 요바 선서 동의차다 메바서 요레 데키 참 드가 요레스리야.
So how is it possible to be free from all suffering and to have all happiness? Well, the mind only are saying that the reason it is possible is because the foundation of all suffering is the stains that are upon the mind. But these stains which are upon the mind are not in the nature of the mind. And these stains the mind can be free from these stains. The mind has the power to be free from these stains. And not only that the mind has the power to be free from these stains, but also the mind has the power to expand all of its good qualities. And because the mind has the power to be free from stain, expand all qualities, and by that attaining all the qualities of the Arya beings, all the realizations of the Arya beings, so that ability is what the mind only are calling the nature, or the Buddha nature, which is the ability of the mind to be free from all stains, and the ability of the mind to attain all good qualities. And even though sentient beings have a lot of suffering right now, even though sentient beings have a lot of suffering right now, the root of all the suffering is in the afflictions which are upon the mind, like attachment, ignorance, anger. So these afflictions, they are the root of the suffering. And since it is the afflictions and the afflictive obscurations, and also the cognitive obscurations, which are the predispositions of the afflictive obscurations, the predisposition placed by the afflicting obscurations. So since because of the afflictive and cognitive obscurations, all sentient beings experience all suffering. Well, these since they can be made non-existent. And since and the reason is because these stains are not the nature of the mind. These stains are not like the good qualities of the mind. These stains are only temporary on the mind. And so even those afflictive obscurations and the cognitive obscurations are upon the mind, the afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations are not in the very nature of the mind, because they can be abandoned, they can be made non-existent using an antidote. Sam Korang 땡드 다 가르쳐서는 참바당, 제바당, 시럽당, 안데서 참바 연태 안에 배규 팔람 그 연태도 참바 규를 깨롱 그 시럽 규를 깨롱다 참바당, 제바당,
람탑히니 대소고 연대 유를 깨는 거 샘팅 누가 요레스 저마도 오버로 차도 요레스 샘거랑 잠세다 히랍 근거 이런 거 누가 요레스 근데 임바선다 발세선 데이터뷰가 저마당 제롱당 연대 깨는 거 샘그 땡게 안에베 누가 다 들으지라 가르쳐서는 렉레스다
And so the negative, the stains, they can be abandoned, and the good qualities of the mind, the qualities of love, the qualities of compassion, the qualities of wisdom, they can be increased. And the power of the good qualities of the mind, by practicing the best, the good qualities of the mind, of wisdom, love, and power, they can increase more and more and more.
제가 다 너도냐고 가르래도 나도 샘팅의 동네 탐지가 짜와다 용직다 자소 용모다 동네 탐지 전공 짜와직도 왔디 샘그 랑히 말에 내 샘다 로를 붙여대 바 제롱 붙여네 요래 근데 봐서도 거 님부터 끼와이나 대 빵해 요래스 아니 연태서야 돼 야게 람게 빵도고 연태 파페가 바람게 연 사람 연태에서 단다 유를 매나야 대기야 그 누가 아니 시랍다 제 람타킨 깨야 그 누가 샘나 땡 요와 선자 디카르세서는 유리 깨야 요래스
And so the essential meaning is that the afflictions that are the root of suffering, they can be abandoned, even though they are suffering. The root of the suffering, which are the afflictions, they can be abandoned, and because the afflictions are not in the nature of the mind can be separated from the afflictions, and not only that, but also the good qualities of the mind, like love and compassion and wisdom. So these good qualities of the mind, they can increase more and more by practicing the path. And so by applying a strong antidote, one can be free from the afflictions. And by practicing the path, one can attain more, like one can increase more and more the good qualities of the mind.
다 대양 야원이야 다 대양 아니 샘그 땡게 저마트서 제롱고 누바당 아니 연대 줄에 제롱고 누바 대양 그 쌉들레바 말에 샘코랑 접잡네 샘코랑 접잡네 저마다 제롱 샤데 요래 샘코랑 접잡네 연탱 뭐가 제롱데 차대와 선자 근데 그 누바디 토마메바네 유대 용화 이바 선자 쌉들로 샤바레면 도라스
And that kind of ability of the mind to be free from stains and to increase good qualities is not something which is newly created, but this is something that has been in the mind since beginner's times. This is like an innate quality of the mind, that quality to increase a good quality and that quality to abandon the stains. This is something that has been there in the mind since beginner's time.
얘다 샘코랑 접잡네 아니 저마 로버로 쳤네 디요래 저마 샘거랑 이차요 말 샘거랑 접잡네 샘거랑 접잡네 연대 공도 페롱 그니바 제 요래 근데 요가 선자 그 샘거랑 요 잡네 다 되게 가르쳐서는 사메 이히 사모데 거 누가
And so from the very moment the mind is created, like, the mind is not created, but together with the mind, together with the existence of the mind, there is also, like, wherever there is a mind, there is the ability to be free from stains. Any mind is not in the nature of stains. Any mind has this innate ability to be free from stains. And not only that, but also any mind has the innate ability to increase the good qualities. And so the very moment there is a mind, there is the freedom from stains, and there is the ability to increase the good qualities.
대답이 샘그 땡라 요베 안에 저마당 제롱당 연대 줄에 제롱 거 안에 파괴기 연대 줄에 제롱 거 같은데 사메 이히게 가서 연대 사메 이히게 사봉 된데 작이요나 디 가르쳐서는 안에 디 가르쳐서는 장신이 이렇게 뭐라 샘코랑 요 짠네 샘코랑 요 짠네 샘코랑 접 짠네 안에 코랑 배 장시스 안에 가르쳐서는 상지 토비가 누가 요디 요래 저마배 빵노당 연대 줄에 제롱 거 누가 장시스 요 와서다 장신이 이렇게
And so this variability, the ability of the mind itself to be free from stains, and the ability of the mind to develop the realizations in the continuum. So these two abilities, the ability to be free from stains and to develop the realizations in the continuum, and to develop the realizations of the Arya beings in the continuum. So this is something that is not newly attained, but something that is there together with the mind. And this is called the naturally abiding Buddha nature. And it's called naturally abiding because it is abiding by nature. It's the very nature of the mind that this ability is there. It's abiding by nature. It's naturally abiding.
안데 라기 내려기나 안에 렉직 여는 저게 도와 안 연결을 가르치는 약이 열잖아 레레 다 대답이 쌤 그때나 주마다 제롱다 연대 줄에 깨롱 그 사메 이히가 다 사원 되지 요나 델레 라기 내려 랍그 요나 다 데카르세서나 토섬 검섬게 냠내 시발 때네 된저그 누와데 흉체드 다음에 네가 저 열어 봐 흉체드 저 네가라 또 누와데 공리 공리 피하가 네가라 가르다 연결을 시작하래
And then one might ask the question saying, okay, great, there is the naturally abiding Buddha nature, which is the seed of primordial wisdom. It's always there for everyone. And it's an like innate quality of the mind. Okay, so that's the Buddha nature. Why do we need to have two? If we already have this naturally abiding Buddha nature, which is naturally there, what's the deal with the evolving Buddha nature? Well, the evolving Buddha nature is also a Buddha nature, and that Buddha nature is the Buddha nature is referring to the Buddha nature at the time of being enhanced by listening and so forth. So there is times, right, that the Buddha nature becomes stronger, right, more potent, right, by the conditions of listening and so forth. So at these times, when the Buddha nature becomes more strong, when it becomes enhanced by the conditions of listening and so forth, so this is called the evolving Buddha nature.
안에 대답이 그 쌤 그때 나라 주마당 제롱당 안에 파괴기 연태 줄에 제롱 그 누가데 안에 3의 24번이나 다들 3의 24번sel라기도 와. 근데 3의 25 뭘 좋아요래. 다들 뭐라 토삼 검성 그다 당보서 쌤들 장기들 내 대화데 토삼 검성 그 달가르세서나 즉 수답네 누가 흉세의 당외 값을라 3의 25 뭘 좋아요잖아. 뭘 좋아요 말해스. 이 사본도 남지 사본세도 희베 뭘 좋아야 돼 말해스. 다 안에 가르치는 3의 24번세서나 어데 토삼 검성 그 염내 지발에 때네 된저그 누가디 그 가드나 누비 뭐가 되게를 마도 희베 뭐춘 유려요 말해. 가드나 3의 24 사본데 가드 누비 뭐가 되게 에나다 누가디 토삼 검성 희랍된 누가디 흉체체 누가디 흉체체 들어베 흉체 들어베 네가라 가랬다 토서가 소담네 누가 흉체 들어베 네가라研究를 해서 얘기하래.
And then also the question comes, well, you speak about a seed or a potency that will, this potency or seed is the seed of the uncontaminated primordial wisdom. So when you say seed, do you mean that like a seed, it will grow more and more until you have like uncontaminated primordial wisdom as the result? Like, will it transform, to use accurate words, will it transform into the nature of the uncontaminated primordial wisdom? And the answer is no. That seed or potency will not transform into the nature of uncontaminated primordial wisdom. It is not a substantial cause of the uncontaminated primordial wisdom. But that seed or potency, when it meets with the conditions of listening and so forth, it becomes stronger and stronger. And so that's how this seed is like. When it meets with the conditions of listening and so forth, it becomes stronger and stronger. But it doesn't transform into the actual wisdom, the actual uncontaminated primordial wisdom.
단 너나 가르쳐서는 아주 동해 탐지 매바 차요. 내기 장어 들어요. 가르치네. 쌤된 그 동해 탐지 그 영어가 짜바디 아니 쌤된 그 차소고 영어다 영어도 봐 희지도 봐 서렌도 다 저도 가르치는 매바서는 방해요래. 대 매바서다 대 제롱 군데 봐. 다당 아주 쌤된 그 차소 영어도서 요나야 코란데 제롱 매바서다 제롱 군데 봐 직쌤 요래. 안 다가 나기가도 탑에 그 사람 연대 다서 탐지 귤이 다다 매나야 저도 제롱 군데 봐 지요래. 너나 주마당 나도 쌤된 그 주마당 제롱 주마 제롱당 쌤땡 요에 동행 그 동행 겨 주마도 제롱 군데 봐 직당 안에 요새 귤이 제롱 군데 봐 어떻게 그 누가 들다 가르쳐서 저는 삼이 상원하고 요래 다디 쌤자베 값 다디 레그레샤스 내가도 쌤 그땡나 동행 겨 제롱 군데 봐당 내지 그겨 안에 배 파람 귤이 깨야겠다 내지 그겨 제롱 누가 요바선다 누가 틀라 때네 안에 나도 동행 상에 봐 누가 틀라 요바 때네 안에 뒤가는 딱 나도 냠내신 토상거서 냠내지나 안 누가도 코네 패네 안에 토상거서 히랍단 남다기 귤라 마키바 끼바 뭐냐마 코네 되네 타와탄 지게베 고마 토양도가 제가 된데 봐서는 샘 그때는 대답이 정말 제롱다 요때 요리 계롱 누가 되면 대 용 말아 샘지 땡라 요때 요리 계롱다 정말 제롱 누가 되어 와서서 안에 제로랭가 또 도상 검사 냠냠다 지발 때는 용양도가 어떤데 봐서는 대답이 샘 그때는 정말 제롱다 안에 요때 계롱 누가 어다 사메 사വും 다 된데 지금 가르쳐서 나 대케주 섬단데 봐 도마메 바디 용와 안에 추니 그 토바 안에 다 되게 다 계수다 되는 사람이 희사와 같을 릭세리다 디 어다 디 릭세야 되는지 코그리에서 같다 센전데.
And so in short, it's all about, if if we ask the mind only proponents, is it possible to be free from suffering, and is it possible to attain all happiness? And the mind only will say yes, it's possible to be free from all suffering, and it's possible to have all happiness. And then if we ask mind only why, why do you say that? Well, the mind only will say why? Because we have that potency. We have that seed, the seed of primordial wisdom. And that potency seed, what we call potency and seed, we mean that this is the innate ability of the mind to be free from suffering, and the innate ability of the mind, like to be free from stains, the innate ability of the mind to be free from stains, and the innate ability of the mind to give rise to qualities in the continuum. And so this innate ability of the mind is what we call like the nature, the Buddha nature. And this Buddha nature has the three qualities of the Buddha nature of being there since biggest time and so forth. And so when this Buddha nature is meeting with outer conditions like listening, contemplation, and meditation, it becomes stronger. And by increasing, the Buddha nature, the power of the Buddha nature, so in this way, like the Buddha nature, the ability of the mind to be free from stains, to have all good qualities, is the reason why we can have all happiness and be free from all suffering.
예토다 텔레삼노 땅할 때네 안에 가르세는 예토 대비가 파페 르게 시샤와 달라 때네 팔람 토야를 펜톤도 얘네야 텔레다 셈삼이 지히게바데 삽두조도 차두조도.
And so when we look in comparison, so the first explanation of the tradition of the hearers, so this explanation is giving benefits. When we rely on it, we can understand better how to be free from suffering, how to have happiness. But when we look at the explanation of the mind only, so in comparison to the explanation of the hearers, the mind only explanation is more subtle and more beneficial.
다티지 제도다 디가나 음마베게 지히게비야 텔레바 차와 텔레 사번 지히게요.
And then still in relation to these two explanations, the explanation of the middle way is more subtle and more profound.
제가 텔레틴다 나쇼세야 간데도 안에 데서 참아 텔레틴다 가르 연구를 해서 참아 남쇼다 히라그 차네. 데레 마도지 뭔디 직부직이 손나 참아 직부직 그냥 캐는데다 도나라 만두를 참아 직부직 그냥 캐는 거라. 다들 많이 맞히네. 소소 남쇼그 배 짤을 때네. 안에 렉스야데 담보 간데 문지시도. 안에다 가르세는 즉 년도 대비 렉스도 간데 지금 문지시도. 샘잠베 렉스도 간데 문지시도. 음악 렉스도 간데 문지시도. 소소 남쇼그 히라그 배주 땅데 거네. 안에 히라 남쇼를 때네. 안에 렉도 바인바 렉도바 이렇게 내봐 찍파이나야 렉샤카 만자바 차라 만자바 사블로 만자바 나데 남주샤는 야와 들리되는 가르세선다 히랍 지선라고 하고도도.
And so we see that Buddhism is not about following with blind faith, but Buddhism is about following with reasons and with wisdom. Because also when we speak about what is the nature, so we see that the different tenets of Buddhism are given different explanations about the nature, and that these different explanations have different levels of subtlety, different levels of profundity. And so by seeing how the Buddhism is trying to understand the nature, we can also understand that Buddhism is not about blind faith, but Buddhism is about using one's wisdom and using reasons in order to understand how to act in reality.
다가나 이제 점담마바 이제 상제기 진행 점담마바 이제 제라마바 도대바 샘담 엄마바 차장의 상지 진행이 바 직파래. 이나야 대창마의 상지 제스담마의 히럽이 초럽이 남지 히럽되는 상지 제스담 거에 와서 안다데 히럽 섬당당 단 남쪽 배주 당데 뭐 되는 게 히럽을 빠짱 놓고네 점담마바 이제 시작하라.
And also we can understand by that also that the four tenets are the four Buddhist tenets are all followers of the Buddha. They're all Buddhists, but there are different levels of intelligence. And because of having different levels of intelligence, there are 4 tenets. Because each tenet, the way they are positing the teachings of the Buddha, is in accordance with their own intelligence. And so we have 4 tenets in relation to the profundity of the way of positing, the reality.
제당 따발 말 따발 때나 받디 몰라 소 남추고 땡네 로도 마도 디 메겐베 가르힌 타가라레스 되게 뭐도
And so the way of positing the view is by using one's discriminative wisdom and not by relying on the words of another person, by one's own discriminative wisdom, right?
타가나 렉테나 그 상제기다 타와 단지 겐베 렉세나르 간티티 겨 소바 때나 받디 몰라 난그 단다데 시겨다 난그 줘야다 소 난그 줘라 난그 줘데 렉테나 받디 몰라 양 다데 남슈 권테나 받디 책 마도 책 모데시네 디치 프레스라 군도.
And in the same way, also the nature or the Buddha nature is also something which one has to understand using discriminative wisdom. There are outer conditions and inner conditions, but most importantly, right, is the inner condition, which is one's own intelligence. And in order to reach a stable understanding of the Buddha nature, one needs to use one's intelligence, right?
아니 다 디나네 가르세나 렉 임바다 마이가 간에 작스에서나 아니 렉 임베 드지 요데바 칸히글라 노지 그르파 메나 아니 데 약도 그래봐 다야 지금 저 드지 그르파 데스 요나 양텔 노지 데케라네 양 쫑쫑쫑 통고요나 다동 케라데 노수 데네 쫑다바 그다다 렉 요베 그 배상지 그 렉 임베 그 드지 요바 칸히글라 텔레 렉 노지 메바치 고고요.
And also when we establish what is Buddha nature, the way we do it is by trying to find something that has no faults, meaning that if we're asked what is Buddha nature, we need to posit something that has no faults of logic, that no one can say, well, it has some good reasons to say that it is Buddha nature, but there are also reasons to say it's not Buddha nature. So when we ask ourselves in the end what is Buddha nature, it has to be something that has 100% pervasion, something that cannot be, undermined by logic, and that will be posited as Buddha nature. Otherwise, we might say about many things that they are Buddha nature, and there might be, benefit in saying that. When we say about different things that they are Buddha nature, there is a benefit in saying that. But if there are faults, if there are arguments that show that this is not Buddha nature, so we will not accept that as the final Buddha nature. The final Buddha nature has to be something that, no one can see a fault in saying that this is Buddha nature. Logical fault.
예장 심신 담치 타바토 요래 상지 공바 토 요래서 다가서 뭔데리 뭐도 상지 송독세서나 들이 좀다 말아 용식 말아 다 상지 송독식 많이 받치네 용고야 김세 심신 담치 상지 토야 격 김세 가래 오 유조도 상지 톱지 유조도 타와 톱지 유조도 가도 샘팅난도 봤어 안다 되는 제시 점체다 그 상마데 리피클람네 타와 담치 캠베 공바 토야 상마데 리파 양다 클람네 베카르세서나 저 타와 담시 캠베 컴파트서 드비차비 요래 다데 용어 제발 드비트서 포토서바들 좋아요 가이스는 디 규데 나도 샘팅 도가스 아다 데네 엠바선다 디 데레신다 너나 드비퍼섬 서바 상지 타와 담시 캠베 컴파트 토야 요래 샘지단지 가르치는 세는 기퍼섬 서바 다 규 소바데 소소 샘팅 도가스다 리픽 듣고 요래.
And so when Buddhism is saying that all sentient beings can attain the state of Buddhahood, this is not about blind faith. If Buddhism really wants to say that all sentient beings can attain the state of Buddhahood, so there must be a good reason. There must be 100% good reason, an undisputed reason why all sentient beings can attain the state of Buddhahood. And one needs to show the main cause, that all sentient beings have the main cause, that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. And so it's all about that. When we say that all sentient beings can attain Buddhahood, it's not about blind faith. There's not much point in that. When we say that all sentient beings can attain Buddha nature, we need to see 100% reason for that, an undisputable reason why all sentient beings have Buddha nature. And so that's what it all goes down to.
대단 다다데 렉세야데 상제 톱지겠다 난그 규그 쪼워지그래.
And so what is called Buddha nature is a main cause that one has in one's continuum.
대단 규 쪼워요바 상제가 규 쪼워요바데 럽터나 아니 가르세서나 데 gempar와데서다 럽터고래. 텔레데네 대답이 제파선 써봐 요바 럽터나 아니 제파선 써봐 상제 컴바타 요바데 리피트 럽터고래.
And once one can attain the main cause, then one can also attain the secondary causes. If one can establish that all sentient beings have the main cause to become Buddhas, then one can also establish the secondary causes of Buddhahood.
상제가 더야가 제저 마트나 립 상제 타야여서 꼭 어서 갸데데 꼭 페게 로타라바.
And if one cannot establish the main cause of that all sentient beings can become Buddhas, if one is trying to insist, saying, oh yeah, all sentient beings can be Buddhas, that will be stupid to insist in this way, right?
상제 더비 립 상제 타야라 간이선 티게 제 니네다 해직시 kinta 사마레레 이게 적고야.
And so saying that all sentient beings can become Buddhas, in order to do that, one needs to be able to establish both the substantial causes and the cooperative conditions to do that.
다데 드바시발라 다데 가르세서나 드사 쪼워데 셈비팅 드고야. 셈비팅나다 주마탄 체롱탄 안에 상제가 연대 줄이 깨롱 두바. 호텔 된 드고야.
And so in order to establish that, one needs to establish the main causes and also to establish the substantial and the cooperative conditions. And in order to establish that the mind has the power to be free from stains, and the mind has the innate power to be free from stains, and the innate power to increase good qualities.
상제 통계도 셈들어봐.
Because that which attains Buddhahood is the mind, right?
대단 셈그 상제 터버시발라 셈 코란팅데 상제 터베 니와지 고라바다.
And for the mind to attain Buddhahood, it has to come from within the mind, right?
맨날 가르세네 가르세서나 니부께롱고 니와데 사봉을 여와서 사봉 같은 니부께롱고 니와 여와서 안나 사봉도 막 따바이는 니부께가 여러봐.
For example, a seed has the power to produce a sprout. And because the seed has the power to create a sprout, that's why we say that the seed has the innate power to develop a sprout.
사봉 때문에 니부께롱 니와 맨날 살았다는 이게 말봐.
And if the seed doesn't have this power to produce a sprout, even if we plant the seed in the ground, we will not have a sprout.
니와 연나다는 사봉 때문에 니부께가
But if the power is there, so planting the seed in the ground, there will also be a sprout, right?
대나 이셈 그때인데 상제 계롱 니와 여서는 니와 때는 상제 타이어 니와 맨 상제 타이어 말은 제가 니와 독스리요. 다들 되게 서들.
And in the same way, also upon the mind, there is this power to give rise to Buddhahood. And because there is the power to give rise to Buddhahood in the mind, that is the Buddha nature.
That is mare. This is Buddha nature. That is in Pasha Treva. Sangi Rebellion.
So not that is the Buddha nature because that means over there. But right now this, because it's inside, right? So this is the Buddha nature.
Jambe bogo chedan jabata gonda zango de yade jinde de da gwenji da no jere ke bande da tam jira ngo to sunchi be jaba de je ngo ka na chone ngo de da jinge de bande gwenji mazambo je jira de ngo je chande ba dan chön ya ba dan je se yira ku ni so ba ye ke ba chong se ta ke so ba ta je so be chen chen bo ngo ka ro ko le jing so pe na de ba ma ni jomene chene so de 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 ya pe san de ba de ji ni mo de len chen de ni me ko ya ni se ta de ko cho se mi ta jo ke ri so na je se ba ma de ba ke na de tu ba chi pa so tra shi ti jang de de le jo wa da de chen de tang e 너나 상지가 렉세야데 가상 용의 희바다 많이 봐. 그래서 düne 가랑 그 세미나티 샤데바데 말 희하나 아니 고대어 연구를 상태는 희바.
Today I thought that if I don't just describe what the scriptures say about the Buddha nature, but also bring it together with my own experience, my own contemplation and experience about it, so I thought it will be more easy to understand. And so that this is what I did in this class, to bring it from my own experience.
그래서 가상에 베티티바 지발 소소센딩 삽타 거르세들이 삽타데 마 템바이.
And so yesterday I said that in order to teach, one needs to have a map, and today I showed this map.
맵 총총 맞도 요 말. 이나야 텔딘 펜토 요래.
And I only have just a small map, but this map is beneficial.
지다 용자마 소 셈나데 배. 삽트나 샤치 그래.
And generally, all the scriptures, they need to appear in the mind like a map.
람사 타세지 요 말.
And one should not decide immediately.
타수 망아 제파 마뇽.
Don't decide too quick, and don't check too little.
어디 가드는 제지 요 말. 냥 그래.
And so there's something never to forget and to keep in the mind.
터잖아. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Rinpoche Class. Rinpoche Class. Thank you, Bella.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche Class. Thank you, Bella.